Tonight, 3 additional COVID-19 deaths recorded, taking deaths from the virus to 435, while 265 new cases were recorded, taking the total of cases now to 24,103. Government targets herd immunity, with 65% of the population to be vaccinated by March 2022.
The 65% of the population clearly represents what we consider to be as close to the herd immunity as possible, and which will render the virus less effective.
Still tonight, Ministry of Health and Wellness orders an immediate investigation into the death of 17-year-old Jaleesa McGowan while classifying her death as tragic.
It's an absolute tragedy. And, I spoke to Jaleesa's mother, expressed my condolences to her family and friends on the unfortunate passing of the young woman, and reassured her that I would do what is necessary to get the details around this incident in order to take whatever corrective actions are necessary.
And one of the 3 guardsmen security guards shot by armed robbers at a Western Union and Cambio in Santa Cruz this morning has succumbed to his injuries. Good evening. Jamaica yesterday recorded 3 additional COVID-19 related deaths, taking the total of deaths from the virus now to 435. The deceased are 2 males from Hanover, aged 72 and 85 years, and a 74-year-old woman, also from Hanover. 3 deaths were recorded as coincidental. Now, the Health and Wellness Ministry says one of the cases was previously classified as under investigation. Meanwhile, there were 265 new cases ranging in age from 10 months to 86 years, taking the total of cases now to 24,103, of which 9,698 are active. Of the new cases, 127 are men and 128 are women. In the meantime, there were 120 additional recoveries, taking the total of recovered persons now to 13,745. In the meantime, the Ministry of Health and Wellness, MOHW, has outlined plans to vaccinate at least 65% of the Jamaican population with 4 million doses of the COVID-19 vaccine by March of next year. Speaking during a COVID-19 online press conference yesterday, the Minister of Health and Wellness, Dr. Christopher Tufton, said officials at the ministry believe that the 65% that is being targeted will give the island herd immunity. This should enable the government and the people of Jamaica to return to normalcy.
So the mandate is to identify and source overall 4 million doses of vaccines by March 22nd. By March 2022, to inoculate at least 65% of the Jamaican population. So in other words, we have identified a fair bit in terms of volumes currently. There's still some ways to go, but I will say that we are in very advanced discussions with some other potential sources, but I'd prefer not to say the details on those until we have a contract in hand and we know that those vaccines are scheduled to come to the country. But the objective is to get to 4 million doses by March 2022. The 65% of the population clearly represents what we consider to be as close to the herd immunity as possible, and which will render the virus less effective, and by extension not so much the inconvenience it is now and the threat that it is on our population, therefore enabling us to move back as quickly as possible to normality, which we all seek. So we ask the public to bear with us. I think we are on a path to recovery, and the vaccines certainly represent an important part, not the only part, but the important part.
Dr. Tufton also stated that the island's health system is on track to reach the target with the doses that have already been confirmed and discussions that are currently taking place.
The government of India, of course, has generously donated some 50,000 vaccines, which is expected to be here by Thursday of this week. So we anticipate that to represent the first delivery of vaccines to our country, and we're all ready to go to ensure that 50,000 doses of AstraZeneca Serum Institute vaccines are used and used efficiently. We're also expected to receive some 14,400 doses of AstraZeneca vaccines on or before Thursday, March 11th. That would represent the second shipment, but the first shipment under the COVAX facility. And this is part of a 124,800 doses, with their remaining allocation to come in on or before May of this year. Another 1.8 million doses of vaccines are to be supplied to Jamaica starting in April, which is next month, under the African Medical Supply Platform. And so we now have a fairly clear schedule, if not specific dates, certainly months, when we expect to receive vaccines in Jamaica for administering to our population.
According to the Permanent Secretary at the MOHW, Dunstan Bryan, a micro plan has been finalized to guide the operation in the public health system during the vaccination process, with the projection that by May, the island will receive 975,000 vaccines, although the inoculation and rollout process will begin this month with different phases.
We are projecting to May that we will have approximately 975,000 vaccines in our arsenal for inoculation. And based on that projection, we intend to roll out the different phases of the implementation of the vaccine. So what are the phases? What are the phases that we're looking at? We have 3 phases. Now, phase 1, as the minister had pointed out, have our government officials, our healthcare workers, the elderly, JDF, etc. Phase 2 has the other public sector workers, the hotel workers, transportation sector, manufacturing sector, banking sector, the agricultural sector. The principle behind phase 1 is that we are looking at the vulnerable groups, the persons who are in high contact areas or are coming into high risk for contamination. We're looking at the persons who are highly vulnerable for negative outcome from infection. And so that is what underpins our phase 1 implementation. Our phase 2 implementation are those persons within the economy or the society that are essential to economic activity. And so we look at the different economic groups, and we will be prioritizing those persons. And then our third phase is a general population phase that looks at those persons in the general population who require vaccination. So our target is 65% of the population by March 31, 2022.
Now, the Permanent Secretary further outlined the appointment process for the COVID-19 vaccination.
Currently, a lot of the public health institutions, the public health departments across the island have been reaching out to the different groups in phase 1, and they have been identifying those persons who definitively say that they want to take the vaccine, and they have been collecting their data. So as we move to the different phases, though, we will be making more a public call for persons in phase 1, like the teachers, or we're making a public call for persons in phase 2, persons in the banking sector, etc. Now, if you wish to get an appointment, you must start the appointment process 5 days before you want your actual appointment. And when you ask for your appointment, you have to provide certain information: your age, date of birth, your area of work, comorbidity, your allergies, your address, the venue that you wish to be vaccinated at, your telephone number and email. Basic information that will guide us. Now, you can make this application or this application for appointment in 4 different ways. A call center has been contracted by the Ministry of Health, and that call center will operate our 888 One Love number, and persons will be able to call into the 888 One Love number and make an appointment. The parish health department will also be enabled to take calls from the public or the persons in the different phases and allow them to make an appointment. You will be able as well to go on the Ministry of Health and Wellness's website or the website of any of the regional health authorities and make an appointment, as well as you will be able to walk into any of our public health parish health departments and make appointment there.
Mr. Bryan further stated there will be a structured approach to the vaccination process to ensure that institutions across the island can remain functional.
A very important part of our prioritization process is the fact that sometimes, in some individuals, when they receive the vaccine and their bodies begin to mount a response, they begin to feel unwell for up to 24 to 48 hours. And so we can't vaccinate everyone in a particular area. So if we are vaccinating police officers, we can't vaccinate the entire police station because in one go. We'd have to stagger that vaccination because persons at that station may then become unwell and therefore will be required to stay home. And therefore it compromises the service delivery. After the prioritization process has been done, and this will be done by a software solution that we are acquiring, the next phase will be that a daily vaccination schedule will be prepared. And 3 days before your vaccination appointment, you will get notification of your vaccination date, your venue for vaccination, the time that you will be vaccinated, and other information particular to your circumstance. Once that is done and you have done the vaccination, a second appointment will be made for your second dose. And as you know, most of the vaccines that we are getting are 2-dose vaccines, and therefore majority of persons will be required to take 2 doses, and so you will have to run this process twice.
According to Mr. Bryan, a study shows that 30 to 45% of the workers who will be vaccinated in phase 1 have indicated that they will take the vaccine, with another 25 to 30% not sure, and a further 25 to 30% indicating that they will not take it. Stay tuned for the full broadcast of yesterday's press conference immediately following this newscast. Still making the news tonight, the Ministry of Health and Wellness says it has ordered an immediate investigation into the death of 17-year-old Jaleesa McGowan, an asthmatic patient who was allegedly refused treatment at the University Hospital of the West Indies on the weekend, who later died in her mother's arms. Reports coming into our news center are that the teenager had an asthmatic attack while at home and was taken to the medical facility by her mother, who was told by a doctor that there were no beds available, so they were unable to administer oxygen to the young girl, who had developed severe breathing problems. Health and Wellness Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton described her death as an absolute tragedy and said he has reassured the child's mother that he will do everything necessary to ensure an investigation is launched into the matter.
Case of young Jalisa. First of all, it is a tragedy. It's an absolute tragedy. And, I spoke to Jalisa's mother yesterday and got her account of what transpired. And clearly she was distraught, and very understandably so. Expressed my condolences to herself, her family, and friends on the unfortunate passing of the young woman, and reassured her that I would do what is necessary to get the details around this incident in order to take whatever corrective actions are necessary. I've also spoken with the chairman of the University Hospital of the West Indies, the chief medical officer, the CEO, and I have asked the chief medical officer here in the ministry, sitting to my left, to begin proceedings to assess or investigate, if you will, and meet with, where necessary, the principal of the university to determine exactly what went wrong. I've also asked the university for a report, but I believe it is necessary to do an independent assessment of what transpired that led to this unfortunate death.
Minister Tufton says this should never happen, and if the investigation proves that Jalisa was turned away from the hospital, the necessary actions will be taken.
And I just want to make it clear that, asthma cases are not uncommon in Jamaica. There's a protocol to dealing with these cases. And no matter how challenged we are at our hospitals and health centers, that protocol should take place and treatment appropriate applied. And, the overwhelming of our space, and we are under stress now, is not an excuse, to be totally frank, for any unresponsiveness, if you will, to the treatment of asthma, because it's not that difficult, to be totally frank, based on my knowledge of how these things are dealt with. And so I wouldn't want to associate the two, or to give the impression to the country that somehow, because of the challenges that we face, and we do face challenges, these issues can be expected, because our standards are a lot higher than that. And I want to make that very clear. Now, I'm still waiting on the reports and the investigations and so on, so I'm not casting any judgment on anyone. But nevertheless, I want that to be very, very clear. I don't think any hospital should turn away anyone who has an asthma attack. And so the issue now is to get the details of what actually transpired. And certainly, if that is the case, or was the case, then whatever corrective action needs to be taken, including holding those who are responsible accountable, and I certainly would insist that takes place. If there's a need for the policy to be clear or clearer, then that will have to be done also.
Also, Dr. Jacqueline Bisaser-McKenzie, Chief Medical Officer, said she will be instructing their Director of Emergency Medical Services to convene a meeting with the other heads of departments to look again at how they address the management and the treatment of asthmatic patients. In news from St. Elizabeth now, one of the 3 guardsman security guards shot by armed robbers at a Western Union and Cambio on Main Street, Santa Cruz this morning has succumbed to his injuries. He died while being treated in hospital. He reportedly received multiple injuries. The other guards have been treated and released. Reports coming into our news center are that at approximately 8:15 a.m., the armed men attacked as the van drove up and the security guards opened the door. Several shots were heard, after which one of the guards was seen on the ground suffering from gunshot wounds and another seen inside the van with what appeared to be gunshot wounds as well. They were helped by persons at the scene and police officers who transported them to the hospital. The perpetrators escaped in a white Honda Civic motor car. Our newsroom was informed that the injured gunmen then fled the scene. They were reportedly unsuccessful in stealing any money. We will bring you more on this story in subsequent newscasts. In other news tonight, the Negril police have charged a man and woman following a series of operations conducted in red ground yesterday. An illegal handgun and a quantity of marijuana were seized during the operations. 38-year-old Richard Mosley, otherwise called Tupac of Red Ground in the parish, has been charged with illegal possession of firearm and ammunition. Meanwhile, 45-year-old Desreen Campbell, who is also from the parish, has been charged with possession of and dealing in marijuana. Reports from the Negril police coming into our news center tonight are that at approximately 3 p.m., lawmen conducted an operation at a premises in the area. The police team reportedly entered and saw a man acting in a suspicious manner. A motor vehicle that was in the yard was searched, and the firearm, a Taurus handgun with 12 rounds of ammunition, was found in the glove compartment of the vehicle. A secondary operation was conducted at another premises occupied by Campbell. 4 pounds of marijuana were seized in that operation. She was arrested and subsequently charged. The court dates for both persons are being finalized and investigations are ongoing. Continuing with the news, the National Water Commission, NWC, is reporting that a mechanical problem today forced an emergency shutdown to extract the pump equipment at its silo facility in St. Elizabeth. Customers are being encouraged to store water for use. The work started today and it's estimated that it will be completed on Friday, March 5. Areas affected include Union, Raheen Housing Scheme, Marlborough, Russell Hill, Comfort Hall, Evergreen, Mount Pleasant, Lineside, Appleton Housing Scheme, Oxford, Paul Mountain, and Content. The NWC is seeking to assure that every effort is being made to restore their normal water supply within the shortest possible time. And those are some of the stories making news. We will return with more stories as the Passport, Immigration and Citizenship Agency, PICA, has upgraded its website to a new interface that will be more user-friendly and attractive. And the National Housing Trust, NHT, plans to invest $57.7 billion to facilitate commencement of 8,513 housing solutions and the completion of 7,043 units by March 31, 2022. But first, we'll take a break and then it's over to Christopher Scott with the very latest in sports.